Hey everybody, welcome to TIW Podcast. I'm Eric, and today I watched WWE Monday Night Raw, episode 1339. This is week 4, part 1 of 2019, and this episode aired on January 21st, 2019. Overall, this was a pretty good episode. Some solid matches. Nothing too crazy. Nothing really brand new that we haven't seen at all before, but some little surprises and some good, very good news. Some news that I'm very excited for, but we'll get to that. We opened up the night with a whole thing with Brock and Paul, and then Vince comes out, and then Braun comes out, and then Finn comes out, and they're talking about David and Goliath, and so we get Braun Strowman versus Finn Balor. So it seemed like there was some mixed reactions online to this episode, especially compared to last week. And I think the major thing with that is that there wasn't a through line throughout the whole episode like there was last week. That this whole opening segment thing, Finn, Braun, Brock. Now, it was cool that Brock was actually out there to watch their match and got involved. And, in fact, Braun won via disqualification because Brock, after having gotten a little bit of a beat down from Finn, or a brief, maybe you could call it sucker punch or two, and on Brock was not happy about that, and so he hits Finn with an F5 right before Finn was about to win. But once that happened, that was it for this story. It was not addressed the entire rest of the evening. I don't think they even did a recap of it or what you missed earlier tonight, because it did not play into any other events throughout the evening. So I think that is the biggest difference between this week's and last week's episodes. But I didn't really mind that. This is, we have what we need to set up for this match. Last week was all about getting this match set up. And, now it's just the reminder, this is what we have coming this weekend, for the Universal Championship match. So anyway, after that, let's see, what was it? Lashley came out with Leo singing his praises, of course, and Apollo comes out and challenges him. But first, they had to have a pose-off, which apparently Apollo won because they had an actual match, which Lashley won. It was not a championship match, so if he had lost, that wouldn't have been that big of a deal for Lashley because he would still be the Intercontinental Champion. Up next, we had Seth Rollins. There's overlap between all of this stuff. As one thing was ending, the next thing would start. Seth came out while Lashley was celebrating the victory, going up the ramp and all that. So Seth versus Drew McIntyre. Seth won this match via a roll-up. So that's good news for Seth. He's got some momentum going into the Royal Rumble. Both of these guys are in the Royal Rumble match, and Lashley and Apollo are both going to be in the Royal Rumble match. So this whole episode is about getting momentum if they can. So we go backstage and we see Revival proposing to Vince, not like that, a match. They're proposing a match to Vince, a rematch for the tag team championships, because the referees didn't know what they're doing. As they're trying to convince him, Kurt Angle was also trying to get Vince's attention. And, it's kind of interesting. They get rid of the GM position. They fire Baron Corbin from it. But in instances like this, he just does kind of exactly the same thing that Baron Corbin did in his last few weeks as general manager. He sees Kurt as not being a valuable contributor to wrestling matches as a wrestler, and so he says, "Okay, if you want a referee that will be has his eye on everything, then Kurt Hawkins, okay, you can be a referee because you're useless as a competitor because he hasn't won any matches in forever. So that comes a little bit later down the line. We'll talk about that. But first, we had a 6-man tag team match: Jinder and the Singh brothers versus the Lucha House Party. Metallic got the pin on one of the Singh brothers, and all was good in the House of Lucha. Baron Corbin defeated Elias in a match that happened because they still have a problem with each other. And then we had a Moment of Bliss, hosted by Alexa Bliss, of course. That started as she presented all the announced entrants so far. There were 21 women on this graphic, and I took a picture of it. You know what? I'm gonna look at it real quick so you can see who all is confirmed for it. But there may be actually there's definitely one more person, and I think there's another person that is also not on the graphic that was confirmed in this segment. Yes. Pretty much everybody is confirmed who is on the main roster, except for the 4 people involved in the championship matches, that being Sasha, Ronda, Becky, and Asuka. So the losers of those matches, I'm guessing at least one of them will end up being in the Rumble match as well. So that brings it up to 22. And then it was all of the ladies started coming out. All of the Raw roster women started coming out, and they ended up fighting each other, a big old brawl that's spilled over. They end up backstage and all of that, and Alexa stands behind, avoids any getting mixed up in all of that. And I was thinking, like, oh, before they started brawling, she like got up onto a chair, and I was kind of expecting one of them just to run over and grab her and like throw her somewhere, which I thought would be, oh yes, that means she's good to compete. That's awesome. But when she very carefully got back down, I was like, worry again, like, oh, she's still just going to be the host of the show. She's not going to be involved in any matches or anything like that. But the fight breaks out. They all leave the stage area, and Alexa has one more announcement that she will be in the match, and that makes me very happy because that means she's okay to compete now. Because she's been in quote-unquote doctor jail for a long time now. Since before, I think since like maybe like September may have been her last match. So that is awesome. I'm excited for that. And then we get Lacey Evans come out, and it's a great introduction to her character. She was in the background last week, but now she's actually presents her character calling people nasties and all that kind of thing. And if it's Lacey versus Alexa, a feud right there, that's a great place to start for both of them. With Alexa getting back into having matches and all of that. So I'm looking forward to that. That brings the count up to 23 officially. I'm assuming either one or both losers of the women's championship matches will be in there. So that leaves approximately 6 surprise entries. Hopefully more on the side of NXT surprise entries. Like with the Shayna Baszler in there. Kyrie, since she was in there last year, she'd be great to see in there. Candice LeRae would be awesome to see. But yeah, so there's 6 spots or 7 that could be really cool surprises, and also could be Lita in there again, stuff like that. But let's move on. Because the most important thing to me from that segment is that Alexa is good to be in matches again. So I'm looking forward to it. Up next, we had the Heavy Machinery debut. They debuted by defeating the Ascension. So that was great. And then we have the Tag Team Championship match. The Road Warriors, Bobby Roode and Chad Gable defended against Revival. Kurt, throughout this match, was very, very attentive to everything. And he caught the Revival cheating or trying to bend the rules multiple times, like 3 or 4 times. And they ended up losing. So they're not happy about that at all. And I don't know if they have a leg to stand on in defense of us, because they asked for that type of match to get that advantage, or rather the lack of disadvantage that they perceived of having in their past matches. And it just did not work out yet again. So we'll see where things go from there. They're so unhappy with Kurt that they attacked him afterwards. And who comes to the rescue? It's good old Zack Ryder. He stands by his friend, and they are reunited. The once tag team champions, Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. Yeah, that was a really cool thing, and didn't really. I mean, there was a lot of story going into there, and it didn't really need a whole lot to make that story make sense, if that makes sense. So that was cool. And then our main event, Sasha and Bayley versus Natalya and Ronda. All kinds of stuff to talk about in this match. There's a moment where the picture from the cable feed went blank. So that's all I'll say about that. That was interesting. But some awesome teamwork from Sasha and Bayley. They're able to really stay on top of their opponents. And I thought this match made it really obvious that these two are an excellent team. And they won. Sasha made Natalya tap out. And so I think this is officially, or maybe they will kind of ignore it since it's a tag team match and Ronda wasn't the one who was defeated in the match. But it's I believe it's the first time Ronda has lost since coming to the WWE. So how does that fare for Sunday? Well, it would be so cool if Sasha Banks won the women's championship and then went into with her tag team partner Bayley Elimination Chamber to also go after the women's tag team championship, or I emphasized the wrong word, the women's tag team championship. But because of that, I have a feeling that whoever is the women's champion will not be in that women's tag team championship match, and that we will have a championship, a regular championship match outside of that, hopefully, for one or both brands, so that there's more than just the one women's match. So I think it's a lot more likely that Sasha and Bayley will be in the tag team championship match and not Ronda and Natalya. But who knows? Could be something completely different. Finn Balor winning the Universal Championship would be really cool, but doesn't seem very likely. And as far as the Royal Rumble, I'm now rooting for Alexa Bliss because I hadn't really thought about that. I was just like, well, we're just waiting to see if she's good to wrestle soon, and now she is. So I'm rooting for her just because that would be really cool. But otherwise, if Becky loses against Asuka and then she ends up in the Rumble, Her winning would be awesome. And so those are my two picks. But well, I'll talk about this more in tomorrow's episode with everything that's going on in SmackDown, because that would affect how I think things are going to go down for Becky versus Asuka. And then the men's Royal Rumble. Wow, out of everybody on Raw, I think who I'm rooting for, probably Seth Rollins, so that he could go after Brock Lesnar next. Especially if Finn versus Brock Lesnar ends up being awesome, which I'm like 98% sure it's going to be awesome. Just because of how great AJ versus Brock was and Daniel Bryan versus Brock was. But and Seth, he's kind of a similar size in comparison to Brock as those three. And so seeing that match at WrestleMania would be pretty sweet. Although now I believe Braun is eligible to be in the Royal Rumble. I guess he would be eligible either way. But it's more likely now that he doesn't have a match that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. But since he won the greatest Royal Rumble, he has a huge target on his back. And I think unless he enters at number 1 and just picks people off before another person is able to get in there, then people are going to wise up and just get rid of him as soon as possible. Of course, they'll do the whole thing where they all bunch up on him and he goes, Rah! And then they all like scatter off of him. The whole Matrix Burly Man fight scene. What was that? That's not what it was called. Maybe it was called that. But anyway, my pick, Seth Rollins, Alexa Bliss, the Royal Rumble winners. But also Becky if she ends up in that match. So that is it for this episode. I also saw Vice tonight, but I don't really want to do a review of it or anything. I liked it. It's an enjoyable movie. It makes a topic that's not very enjoyable pretty entertaining to watch. And there's a lot of really funny parts in it. And it can get why some of the choices are artistic choices of like just weird tangents and stuff like that could be a turnoff to some viewers. But I really enjoyed all those things. And I feel like I learned a lot about stuff, and I want to learn more possibly and look into a lot of the topics that are brought up throughout the film. So that's it. I guess that's my quick review of it. I would recommend seeing it at some point, especially once it makes it onto like Netflix or Hulu or wherever it ends up living for a little while. All right, that's it for today. Let me know what you thought about Raw this week by tweeting me at TIW Podcast. Go to TIWpodcast.com for more reviews. If you enjoyed this episode or anything else on the site, please share some links with your friends. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'll see you next time here on TIW Podcast. Bye.